dazzling Hollywood gala, every camera and every eye was locked onto Keanu Reeves as he stepped onto the red carpet. The night was pure elegance, until it was shattered by a desperate young girl who broke through security and clung to Keanu's leg, begging him for help. What she whispered to him in that moment made Keanu stop everything. He didn't just pause, he shut down the entire event. But before we get into what really happened, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and if these stories move you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The entrance to the majestic plaza glowed in the evening light, its glass doors reflecting gold like something out of a dream. Keanu Reeves arrived through the VIP entrance, adjusting the cufflinks on his sharp blue suit, small movements that masked a quiet discomfort with the spotlight. Inside, the venue buzzed with energy. Staff in sleek uniforms guided guests across the marble floor toward different wings of the celebration. Keanu glanced around, chandeliers glittered above, polished brass signs pointed toward exclusive lounges, and the soft hum of elegance filled the air. Choosing the grand staircase over the elevator, Keanu ascended slowly, the thick carpet silencing his steps. As he moved, some guests recognized him, offering subtle nods, hushed comments. He responded with his signature calm smile, never breaking stride. At the top, a staff member opened a set of frosted glass doors, revealing the VIP lounge, a blend of classic Hollywood and modern indulgence. Warm light spilled from smaller chandeliers, casting a glow over quiet conversations between stars, tech titans, and socialites. The scent of high-end perfumes mixed with gourmet hors d'oeuvres, and a jazz quartet played softly in the corner. Despite years in the limelight, Keanu felt a familiar distance from it all, like he was part of the room but not fully in it. That feeling didn't last long. A waiter approached. "Good evening, Mr. Reeves," he said, offering champagne, whiskey, or a themed cocktail. Keanu chose the whiskey with a nod, took a slow sip, and moved toward a quieter corner to watch the evening unfold from the shadows. From his chair, he took in the scene, industry powerhouses trading stories, supermodels leaning into billionaires, laughter rising just above the jazz. Then came the shift. A stir at the entrance caught Keanu's eye. Guests turned, whispers spread. Someone new had arrived, and the atmosphere subtly changed. A man moved confidently through the crowd, heads turning as he passed, clearly someone with influence. But it wasn't just him, it was the girl beside him that caught Keanu's attention. She looked overwhelmed. Young. Small in her denim jacket. Eyes wide, scanning the room like it was a fairy tale. When the man reached Keanu's corner, his smile was wide, his handshake firm. "Keanu Reeves," he said with practiced charm. "Victor Langham. An honor to finally meet you." Keanu stood, polite as ever. "Nice to meet you, Victor. Thank you for the invitation. You've done a remarkable job with this evening." Victor smiled broader, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. "And this is my daughter, Sophie. She's been dying to meet you." Sophie looked up, eyes shimmering under the chandelier lights. She opened her mouth, her voice a whisper. "You're Keanu Reeves." Keanu's expression softened. And in just a few moments, everything was about to change. As Keanu crouched to meet Sophie at eye level, he offered her a warm, gentle smile and extended his hand. "That's me," he said softly. "And you are?" "I'm Sophie," she replied, her small hand disappearing inside his. "I've seen all your movies. You're my favorite actor." Keanu chuckled warmly. "That's really kind of you, Sophie. Do you have a favorite?" But before she could answer, Victor's hand tightened subtly on her shoulder. Now, sweetheart," he interjected, his tone laced with forced politeness. "Let's not keep Mr. Reeves. I'm sure he's got a busy night ahead." Keanu glanced up, noticing the tension behind Victor's smile. "It's no trouble," Keanu replied calmly. "I always enjoy meeting fans, especially bright ones like Sophie here." Victor's smile widened, though it still didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, that's very gracious of you. Maybe we could get a quick photo for Sophie's memory book." "Of course," Keanu said, standing up straight. "I'd be happy to." As Victor reached for his phone, Keanu noticed something. Sophie's excitement dimmed, just slightly. There was a hint of hesitation in her body language. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, offering reassurance. Victor snapped a few pictures, cheerfully calling, "All right everyone, say action." Then came the request for a short video, just a quick hello for Victor's social media. Keanu agreed. They recorded the clip, with Victor doing most of the talking while Keanu and Sophie smiled and waved. But when the camera lowered, Victor's hand gave Sophie's shoulder a squeeze that seemed just a little too firm. "Okay, sweetheart, time to go," he said with a tone that was no longer playful, gently tugging her by the arm. Sophie nodded, her earlier joy now muted. Keanu noticed. The sparkle in her eyes had dimmed. "We'll let you get back to your evening, Mr. Reeves," Victor said, signaling that the interaction was over. "Perhaps we'll chat again later." "Definitely," Keanu replied, though his eyes were now locked on Sophie, who gave him a small, fleeting look, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. Then she turned to follow her father, stumbling slightly as she tried to keep up with his brisk pace. Keanu shifted his focus to the display items for the silent auction, trying to brush off the unease. The warm lights reflected off polished glass cases, showcasing everything from rare vintage guitars to diamond necklaces. He paused by one, reading the engraved details. But then, he heard it. A voice. Low, sharp, full of tension. "Are you happy now?" It was Victor, near the exit. Keanu instinctively turned, catching a glimpse through a partially opened door. Victor was gripping Sophie's arm. Her small frame recoiled ever so slightly. Then, with a quick push, he handed her off to a uniformed staff member. The staffer, calm and gentle, took Sophie by the shoulders and began leading her down a hallway, away from the main lounge. A frown crept across Keanu's face. His gut tightened. Without thinking, he walked toward Victor, who was now straightening his jacket like nothing had happened. "Everything all right?" Keanu asked, his voice calm, but laced with quiet concern. Victor turned, smooth as ever. "Oh yes, everything's fine," he said with a light chuckle. "She just needed to head to the kids' area. It's dinner time soon, and you know how these events are. Gotta keep the little ones on schedule." He smiled again, still not reaching his eyes. "You understand." Keanu studied him closely. His instincts screamed that something was off, but Victor gave him nothing, not a flicker of guilt. Before Keanu could say more, Victor gave his shoulder a friendly pat. "If you'll excuse me," he said cheerfully. "A few more guests just arrived." Without waiting for a reply, he turned and strode off, instantly shifting into host mode as he welcomed another VIP with open arms. Keanu stood still, watching the door Sophie had vanished through. The glitter and glamour of the gala suddenly felt thin. Artificial. The music, the lights, the laughter, all of it couldn't cover the knot growing in his stomach. Left alone, Keanu tried to shake the feeling, wandering back toward the auction items, pretending to admire them. But his mind was elsewhere. Victor's behavior, Sophie's silence, that grip on her shoulder, it all sat wrong. As he moved from one display to the next, he kept an ear tuned to Victor's voice across the room. It carried confidently, full of charm and practiced ease. But now Keanu knew, behind the curtain, something else was going on. And he wasn't about to let it go. Discreetly, Keanu pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly as he searched for any information he could find on Victor Langham. On the surface, everything looked perfect. Articles praised Victor's success as a top-tier event organizer, his glowing charity work, his picture-perfect family life. But the more Keanu read, the more something didn't sit right. The polished public image clashed with what he'd just seen, that tense grip on Sophie's shoulder, the way her energy had shifted. His gut wouldn't let it go. So caught up in his thoughts, Keanu didn't even hear the footsteps behind him until a hand landed on his shoulder. He turned, just slightly startled, only to see Jacob Lee, a familiar face and a trusted friend. A renowned director and longtime collaborator, Jacob grinned as he said, "You actually showed up." I figured you'd bail and vanish to some cabin in the woods. Keanu chuckled, the tension in his chest easing just a bit. I almost did, he admitted, gesturing to the glittering room. But this seemed important. Jacob nodded, eyes lighting up with amusement. Well, I'm glad you made it. Come on, let's find a spot and catch up. The two made their way to a quieter part of the lounge, settling into plush velvet chairs. Keanu took a sip of his whiskey while Jacob waved down a waiter and ordered a scotch. So, Jacob began, leaning back comfortably, what's new in the world of Keanu Reeves? Any exciting projects you can actually talk about? Keanu smiled, appreciating the ease of their old rapport. A few things in the pipeline, he replied, keeping things vague. You know the drill, can't say too much until the ink's dry. Jacob laughed. Still the man of mystery. But hey, rumor has it you're circling a sci-fi epic. That true? As they chatted, Keanu began to relax for the first time that evening. They swapped updates on upcoming films, the shift in movie distribution, and Keanu's recent charity work. Every now and then, Jacob pointed out notable figures across the room, breakout actors, controversial producers, socialites chasing fame. It was a Hollywood power map in real time. Then Jacob nodded toward the bar. Speaking of rising stars, have you met the Langhams yet? Victor and his wife? They're quickly becoming the couple for A-list events. At the mention of Victor's name, the unease returned like a cold draft. I met Victor earlier, Keanu said casually. Seemed intense. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Intense is a nice way to put it. Word is he's got a temper, especially when he drinks. But his contacts? Rock solid. And that charity work? People love him for it. Keanu nodded slowly, scanning the room again. His eyes found Victor, now deep in animated conversation with a circle of executives, his booming laugh echoing through the lounge. For a brief moment, Victor looked up, met Keanu's gaze, and gave a short, polite nod before turning back to the group. Jacob, Keanu said, lowering his voice, have you heard anything off about Victor? Especially in how he treats his family? Jacob's expression shifted. Not directly. I mean, there are always whispers in this town. But nothing I've seen or heard firsthand. Why? Keanu hesitated. Just something I noticed earlier. Might be nothing. Jacob leaned in. Look, I know you. If something's bothering you, it's for a reason. Just be careful. Victor's got clout. He doesn't take well to people getting in his business. As if on cue, the sound of a bell rang through the room. All eyes turned toward Victor, who now stood near the entrance, a microphone in one hand and that polished smile on his face. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor called out, I hope you're all enjoying yourselves. The gala will be starting shortly. Please take this moment to visit the silent auction displays, and of course, make your way to the red carpet for photos before the main event begins. The crowd began to stir, drifting toward the auction displays with new energy. But Keanu's focus didn't shift. That knot in his stomach, it wasn't going anywhere. He turned back to Jacob. I'm gonna step away for a moment, hit the restroom before the show. Jacob nodded, sipping his scotch. Don't disappear to that cabin just yet. Navigating through the crowd, Keanu made his way toward the lounge's VIP bathroom, only to find it occupied. A nearby staff member offered help, quietly directing him to another restroom further down the hall. Keanu followed the instructions, stepping into a quieter part of the hotel where the party's hum faded into the distance. The plush carpet muffled his steps, the ornate hallway dimly lit and silent. As he rounded a corner, he nearly collided with someone. A small figure, moving fast, almost frantic. It was Sophie, Victor's daughter. And her face said everything. The girl stopped short, startled when she recognized him. Her eyes widened, caught between the urge to say hello and the instinct to retreat. Keanu saw the conflict in her face and offered a warm, gentle smile. Hi there, Sophie, he said softly. We meet again. Are you looking for your dad? Sophie hesitated, her eyes darting nervously down the hallway before returning to his. She shook her head slowly. No. I'm looking for my mom. Have you seen her? Keanu crouched to her level, a flicker of concern tightening his brow. I haven't, I'm afraid. I think your dad's still in the VIP lounge. Should we try to find him? At the mention of her father, Sophie's body tensed, her voice quick and sharp. No, she said. Then, catching herself, I don't want to be with him right now. That was enough to make every alarm in Keanu's mind go off. He kept his tone calm and steady. Is everything okay, Sophie? You seem upset. She bit her lip, clearly fighting with herself. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, Mr. Reeves, can I stay with you? Can you protect me, like you do in the movies, when you're saving the good people? The question hit him hard. A wave of confusion, concern, and something deeper. Protect you? Keanu asked gently. Sophie, what do you mean? What do you need protection from? Tears began to gather in her eyes, but the words wouldn't come. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She just shook her head. But the fear was real, raw, and visible. I know you're a hero, she said quietly. Can you be a hero now? Keanu's chest ached at her plea. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, steady, but careful not to overwhelm her. Sophie, I want to help. I really do. But I need to understand what's going on. Why are you scared? She looked like she wanted to answer, but couldn't. Not yet. Keanu exhaled slowly. You're being very brave right now. And if you ever need help, I'm here, okay? I promise I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. Sophie gave a tiny nod, a glimmer of hope in her expression. For now, Keanu said gently, how about we find a staff member who can help us look for your mom? Somewhere safe where you can wait for her? Sophie hesitated again, then nodded, a little more firmly. Keanu stood up. All right. Let's head back to the lounge and see who we can talk to. Sound good? But they had barely taken a few steps when Sophie froze, her hand tightening around Keanu's. Her eyes were wide with fear. Keanu turned and saw him. Victor. Storming down the hallway with a forced smile stretched across his face and fury behind his eyes. Sophie's body shrank behind Keanu instinctively. There you are, Sophie, Victor said, his tone tight with restrained anger. I've been looking everywhere for you. The staff told me you ran off again. We've talked about this, haven't we? Before Keanu could speak, Victor reached out and gripped Sophie's arm, pulling her toward him. Keanu immediately noticed her flinch, and the way Victor's knuckles turned white from the force of his grip. Mr. Langham, Keanu said, keeping his tone neutral. Sophie was just looking for her mother. Maybe we could. Victor cut him off, lifting a hand slightly, still smiling, but with a chill beneath it. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Reeves, he said with forced warmth. But her mother is currently in an important meeting. She can't step away. He turned back to Sophie. She knows she's supposed to stay in the children's area. We've been over this. With that, Victor began pulling Sophie toward the staircase leading to the upper level. Keanu caught one last look, Sophie's eyes meeting his in a silent, desperate plea. His fists clenched. Every instinct screamed at him to stop this. But he knew he couldn't act on instinct alone, not without knowing the full story. Not without proof. So he watched, jaw tight, as Victor led her away. Turning slowly, Keanu headed down the hallway toward the restroom, the sound of distant laughter and music behind him now sounding hollow. His mind raced. He was trying to stay composed, trying not to assume the worst, but something was deeply, undeniably wrong. Inside the restroom, the soft lighting and gentle hum of water offered a brief illusion of calm. Keanu washed his hands at the sleek marble sink, staring into the mirror and trying to ground himself. His reflection stared back, jaw still tense, eyes sharp. Something about this night had shifted, and Keanu Reeves wasn't about to let it go. The low hum of the exhaust fan buzzed in Keanu's ears as he washed his hands, but then he heard something. Voices. Faint, just outside the restroom door. He paused mid-motion, the water still running, and listened. One voice was unmistakably Victor's, low, clipped, and brimming with barely contained anger. The other voice, softer, hesitant. Sophie. A knot twisted in Keanu's gut. He had assumed they were already upstairs. But now, hearing them just beyond the door, and the tone of the conversation, his unease came flooding back. He turned off the faucet silently and stepped closer to the door, instincts sharp, listening intently. What were you thinking, wandering around alone? Victor's voice was harsh, a complete contrast to the polished charm he wore like armor. You're supposed to stay in the children's room. Why can't you just do what you're told and be a good child for once? Keanu froze. The chill in Victor's voice cut through the air like glass. Sophie's voice followed, barely audible. I was looking for Mom. Where is she? Your mother is busy mingling with guests, Victor snapped, dismissively. I've told you not to disturb her. Now, you're going back to the children's room, or I'll have the staff take you again. Or would you rather I call the driver to take you home? You know what that means when we get back tonight. The threat wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. It was cold, calculated, and it landed like a punch to Keanu's chest. His brow furrowed. This wasn't a stern parent, this was control, intimidation. And it was wrong. Keanu dried his hands quickly, unsure of what he was about to do, but knowing he had to do something. Just as he moved toward the door, it opened. And there stood Victor. The smile came instantly, forced, stretched, and brittle. Ah, Keanu. There you are, he said, feigning surprise. I figured you'd already headed back to the lounge. Keanu nodded, trying to keep his tone neutral. Just needed the restroom. The one in the lounge was full. Victor stepped in, his voice turning suddenly light and chatty. He asked about the auction, which items had caught Keanu's eye, but the words felt hollow. Rehearsed. Keanu could feel it. Victor didn't care about the answers. His eyes were scanning, calculating, and beneath the surface, something was unraveling. There was a twitch in Victor's jaw, his pupils slightly dilated, and an unmistakable scent of alcohol on his breath. Despite the room's cool air, a bead of sweat slid down his forehead. Keanu watched him carefully. Victor, are you okay? He asked gently. You seem distracted. Victor's gaze snapped back to him, too fast. Oh, just the excitement of the evening, he said with a chuckle that didn't sound natural. Then, placing a firm hand on Keanu's arm, just a little too firm, he added, You know, it's probably best if you head back to the lounge. We've had paparazzi sneak in before, and the red carpet starts soon. Just trying to keep things smooth. The message was clear. A warning hidden behind false concern. Keanu kept his cool. Of course. Thanks for the heads up. He stepped out, casting one last glance over his shoulder. Victor was watching him. Intensely. Walking back toward the lounge, Keanu's thoughts spun. Everything he had overheard, the way Sophie shrank behind him, the cold threat, it all screamed that something was very wrong. But now, Sophie was gone. He scanned the hallway. Empty. Back in the VIP lounge, the energy had shifted, cameras clicked, music swelled, and guests buzzed with excitement for the red carpet walk. Large monitors displayed live feeds of flashing lights and cheering fans outside. Keanu moved through the crowd, his eyes searching for a woman he'd only seen once, in a photo online. Sophie's mother. But there was no sign of her. Nowhere. Instead, he found himself face to face with a familiar voice. There you are. Jacob Lee said, clapping a hand on Keanu's shoulder. I was starting to think you bailed. Can you believe this turnout? Keanu forced a smile, his jaw tight. Yeah, it's impressive. But his mind was elsewhere. Still back in that hallway. Still hearing Sophie's voice tremble behind the door. And Keanu Reeves wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. Not anymore. As Keanu kept his tone calm, he casually asked Jacob, "By the way, have you seen Barbara Langham?" Jacob looked puzzled. "Barbara? No, she hasn't shown up yet. But I did see Victor head outside not long ago, didn't look too happy." "Why do you ask?" Before Keanu could respond, a staff member arrived. "Gentlemen, it's time for the red carpet." Jacob straightened his tie with a grin. "Showtime." As they walked, Jacob chatted about the event and the auction, but Keanu's mind was elsewhere, still on Sophie. At the staging area, a coordinator split them up. Jacob would walk first, Keanu right after. Alone now, Keanu took a deep breath, trying to focus. But the second he stepped onto the carpet, cheers and camera flashes couldn't drown out the growing turmoil inside him. Then, chaos. A sudden collision at his leg. He looked down. It was Sophie. Her eyes wide, tear-streaked, clinging to him. "Mr. Reeves, please help me." She had bruises all over her arms, some old, some fresh. The cameras kept flashing, capturing everything. Keanu shielded her immediately, crouching beside her. "You're safe now, Sophie. Let's get you out of here." He guided her backstage, away from the media frenzy. "What happened to your arms?" he asked gently. Sophie hesitated, then whispered, "He hurt me again. Please, don't let him take me back." Keanu froze. "Who are you talking about?" "My dad," she said. "He hits me. He hits Mom too." Before Keanu could respond, Victor Langham burst into the backstage area. Trying to act composed, he forced a smile. "Mr. Reeves, thank you for looking after my daughter. There's been a misunderstanding." Keanu stepped protectively in front of Sophie. "Is that so? Then maybe you can explain the bruises on her arms." Victor laughed awkwardly. "Kid's roughhouse. Sophie's a tomboy, always getting into scrapes." He turned to Sophie. "Sweetheart, let's go home and clean you up." Sophie didn't move. Keanu looked at her. "Sophie, it's okay. You can tell us the truth." And she did. Tears in her eyes, she confessed that her father often beat her and her mother. "He made me wear that denim jacket to cover the bruises," she said. "Before the gala, he hit me just because I asked for Mom." Victor snapped, losing his composure. "She's lying. Grab your jacket, Sophie." "No," she cried. "I don't want to go back. I want my mom." Victor raised his hand, but Keanu moved. In a flash, he caught Victor's wrist mid-swing. "You've done enough," Keanu said coldly. "This isn't discipline. This is abuse." Security guards watched, unsure. "Shut down the event," Keanu ordered. "Call 911. Now." Guards hesitated, then obeyed. Victor panicked. "You'll regret this, Reeves. I'll ruin your career." Keanu didn't flinch. "I'll take that risk." Police arrived. As officers cuffed Victor, Sophie cried, "I want my mom." A staff member, now visibly shaken, led them to a hidden room, and there, sitting alone, was Barbara Langham. Sophie ran to her. "Mom." Barbara held her daughter tight as the truth unraveled. Keanu gently explained everything. Barbara broke down. "I didn't know how to escape. He kept us hidden, controlled everything. But this ends now. I want to press charges." A detective asked Sophie about the abuse. "He hits me every day," she said bravely. "Sometimes with a belt, sometimes with a shoe stick." Barbara stood, her voice firm. "We've stayed silent too long. Let's go to the police station. We don't want to see him again." Outside, in the hotel lobby, surrounded by officers and paramedics, Barbara turned to Keanu. "You gave us a second chance. I'll never forget this." Keanu shook his head. "Just take care of each other now." Sophie tugged at his sleeve. "Are you coming with us?" Keanu crouched beside her. "I can't right now. But I promise I'll check on you soon." She nodded. As Barbara and Sophie were driven away, Keanu gave his statement to police. A detective pulled him aside. "You did the right thing. Not many would have stood up to someone like Langham." Keanu's voice was steady. "I'd do it again. No child should have to live like that." As the night wind brushed his face and the sirens faded, Keanu stood outside the majestic plaza, silent and still. This wasn't a role. This was real. And he knew some heroes don't wear capes or fight on screen. Some just choose to act when it matters most.